Welcome to today's episode of Expert Showcase. Today on the show, we have another epic guest for you. It's Luci McMonagle, and she's going to be here talking to you, teaching you, showing you, and telling you about how to increase your income by dissolving your fears. 3 things you need to know. Hey there, Luci. How you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. And how
Epic.
are you, Chris?
Oh, I'm doing epic, and we're really looking forward to having you on the show, folks. We were just prepping in the green room, and Luci's got a wonderful last name, McMonagle, and the over and under for me mispronouncing this wonderful last name today is 2. So if you hear me say McGonagall more than 2 times, you win the over. If not, you win the under. You figure out what the bet is on your end as you're watching the show. See, Luci, our viewers have come to understand that the host makes some mistakes, so we usually try and figure out what kind of the bet's going to be at the beginning, so that people can have a little fun and maybe gamify their experience with Expert Showcase. So it is McMonagle, and I hopefully will get that right every time I say that. So without any further ado and putting less focus on me and more focus on you, who is the important one in the show today. Luci, we always start off every episode with talking about the hero or heroine's journey. Our audience
Mhm.
loves to get to know where a person came from, what that turning point was in their life to get them where they are today. So just in a brief give us a brief overview of your hero's journey.
So, to start with, I grew up very, very poor. And to make up for that, I went into healthcare because healthcare was always a good position. So, after 20 years of working on call 24/7, my health failed. And it was at that point that I needed to have an emergency surgery. There was complications, and then I lost my job because I was no longer capable of working and walking and doing the rounds that I needed to do. So from there, I had to figure out how was I going to take my side businesses and make them happen, make something happen, because I wasn't able to go back into healthcare at that time. And what I discovered was I was saved by mentors and coaches and really understanding the mastery of love, the 4 agreements, and the voice of knowledge was my main ones. And after that, I was able to combine all of my experience, my wisdom, and with the help of my coaches and my mentors, I was able to present my knowledge so that other people do not have to make the same mistakes that I have.
Oh, that's epic. And it's so interesting. First of all, thank you for your service in the healthcare field. I've known many people in the healthcare field, and whether it's a nurse or a nurse's aide, especially nurse's aide. My ex-wife happens to be a nurse's aide, and I'll tell you, it's probably one of the most thankless jobs I've ever seen or I've ever heard of. And you would think not, because you would think that people would be appreciative of the care and everything, but it just seemed like it seemed like it was like I said, it almost felt like it was a thankless job, and there was a lot of death around, which is never a happy thing. It amazed me how many people that she would help through at the end of their life, because she would work the overnight shift, and it just kind of
Mhm.
seemed like when those things would happen. So thank you for your service in the healthcare field. It sounds like an
Welcome.
extremely interesting journey. It sounds like you've gone through what other experts have gone through, which is something terrible, and
Yes.
it's led you to find coaching and realize that coaches can really help change the world. So I'm really looking forward to understanding, and in the second half of today's show, figuring out how people can increase their income by dissolving their fears. And y'all definitely want to stick around, because we've got a special offer for Luci coming up at the very end of the show. But let's dig deeper in. Let's talk about the beginning. And when we talk about the beginning, let's focus on the time before the turning point. So, what got you? You said you grew up poor, and you said you got into the healthcare field because there always seemed to be, I think you said, because there always seemed to be employment in that field, right?
Well, Chris, thank you for that question. And the beginning, my parents divorced by the time I was 3 because my sister passed, and they could not make it through that emotional hump for them. And so my mom, who did not have education, she was in a generation where it was common to finish high school, get married, and be a housewife. That's what she was expecting to do. So she wasn't prepared to start taking care of me and my other sister. There was three of us, and then there was two left. And so she was a bartender. She worked all kinds of weird hours, and she'd waitress, or she would just do whatever she could, but it was still not enough to really take care of a family. And that left us in extreme poverty and on social assistance and stuff.
Yeah, and that's always, it's always a bad place to be because people, and I say that because, it's people don't realize how much stress that puts on not only a body but a mind living in that deep poverty, situation. I mean, I've been homeless at different points in my life, and when it's not by choice, it definitely adds this whole other level of stress and frustration. My I've got a brother who decided he was gonna hitchhike across the country. And he's got a little bit of a rebel spirit in him. But when so he spent some time on the streets, and his time was a little bit different. It was still stressful, but it was by choice. So it was kind of, you could, he could understand. He knew he was making the choice, and he would, how can I put this? It was definitely from his telling me it was definitely less stressful than when you're put under it, not by choice. So, and also, I'm sorry to hear you had a sister pass so young. I mean, that's always a terrible thing to lose a sibling. It's just, I've known people who've lost siblings, and I know how deep that can run. So tell me, how did all of that start, how did all of that affect you, um, when and because your decision to get into healthcare, I think, was predicated on that. And
Yeah.
how did that all turn into a decision to get into the healthcare field?
All of that really helped me because I was always very loving and I always wanted to help other people because watching my mom suffer emotionally and physically from the jobs made me want to help other people so they were not suffering. And healthcare did a few things, and my grandma had a lot to do with it because she was an LPN, and and it was just kind of like a natural transition for me.
Yeah.
And
Oh, go ahead.
oh, and I was going to say, and then the way I kind of got into deep into it is a friend of mine, my very best friend, got into an auto accident, and he had a fracture of a 4T, and he became a paraplegic. And so I started taking care of him and his family.
Yeah, and that's so great. I mean, when I say great, I mean from the standpoint that, you stepped in and helped, and, took care of him and his family. So you're a giver, and that's great. And, it's also great to hear that, you come from a line of people who were in the healthcare field. So you're in the healthcare field, and what did, by the way, what did you do? Were you a nurse? Were you a nurse's aide? What did you do in the healthcare field?
I started out with as just being a care provider, and then I built my way up to being um, the manager. From the manager, I went to being the liaison. From the liaison, I went to being a chief executive director.
Oh, okay, excellent. And by the way, you weren't just a care provider. It's funny. Every time somebody says "just," I
Right.
always picture Tony Robbins in my head because he does that great routine where somebody
Yeah.
says she's just a mom, and he starts screaming at her, and I can only imagine what that would feel like, standing and getting screamed at by Tony, looking up and going, "Okay, okay, Green Giant, I'm done at this point. That's, you're
Yeah.
fine. I'm not just anything. Thank you very much." But yeah, so you were a care provider, and you worked your way up, which is epic. And that's what, people have to realize. A lot of people will, whether it's in our industry or other industries, they want to become this overnight success, and they don't realize all the hard work that goes into building things up. Sure, you can become successful quickly. Some people do become successful quicker than others. But even if you look at, somebody like, an Eminem, the rapper Eminem, I mean, to a lot of people on the outside, it looked like he was an overnight success until you find out, all the back alley clubs and everything he had to do to get there. So you were a caregiver, you worked your way up. Before we get to the turning point, one question I would have is, did you see yourself as always being in the medical field? I mean, did you ever see yourself leaving that field?
At the time, no. I mean, I had side businesses that were on a more holistic level. I did meditations, etc. But I never seen myself leaving it because it was my life, and I was also the co-owner of the company too. So that was my life and my company, or part company.
Interesting. So you're kind of like Steve Jobs. You started in a garage, and then you built up everything to be the co-owner of to be the co-owner of the company, right?
Yes, exactly.
And it's interesting because you also mentioned, and we're going to start getting into the turning point in a minute, but you mentioned a car accident and you mentioned a layoff. So I'll be interested to hear during the turning point how you ended up going from being a co-owner to being laid off. Because I'm looking a little confused because it kind of does sound like Steve Jobs, where the company just says to him basically, "Hey, you're out," which is definitely not a good thing. But the interesting part is you mentioned about some side businesses, and before we talk about the turning point, because I know it's going to be applicable later on, with the side businesses, did you have a passion for those side businesses, or were they merely something that was making you a few extra dollars?
It was a passion because they were not making me money on the side. And it was really to help other people because when I started my journey and I started understanding how our thoughts and our reality create our future, I wanted to tell everybody. I, I wanted to bring people into meditations. I wanted them to understand what's the energetics. What is that? It sounded a little woo-woo back then, and it's founded strictly in science because I always have to prove or disprove stuff. And so they didn't bring me money, but they did definitely feel my passion and help other people.
Yeah, and it filled, it's the one thing that people have to realize is we have all these buckets that we have to fill. And money is the one
Hmm.
that's talked about most often because it is the thing that allows you to live a lifestyle you want to live. It's the thing that gives you choices. It's the thing that, allows you to, do what you want to do. Unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, money isn't everything. And there are other buckets that people need to fill. So it's great that you had started a passion-based business that um, helped to fill those other buckets. One last question on that before we get to the turning point. Did you find that having these passion-based side products, did you find it had any effect on your business, on your main business, either positive or negative? Like, did it allow you to get through the tough times better? Did it make you realize that the business you were in wasn't your passion? Did it have any effect that you can remember on that main business?
Actually, Chris, yes, it did have a major impact on me. And doing the side business that I was doing was my passion. It really made me feel like my cup was becoming full. And so it created less stress on my regular job.
Oh, that's great. So one thing helped the other. So you had this, and you had a very high stressful. I mean, taking care of people and running a company that takes care of people is very high stress. So you found a way to help alleviate that stress and kind of balance yourself out. And that's one of the things that people don't realize is that when you have a lot of stress in one area, you don't always have to get rid of the stress in that area. You can find something else in another area that balances it out, and all of a sudden your brain comes back to this equilibrium, and you can take you can deal with things longer than than you would in the past. It's kind of like expectations. So anyway, enough about that before I derail this show anymore. Let's go ahead and move on to the turning point. So tell us a little bit about what happened, and let's talk about the turning point a little bit.
So the turning point happened after I had to have an emergency surgery, and because my health failed, I was no longer capable of taking care of Chuck, who was the person I was taking care of, and he had to go into a nursing home. And it was because he had to go into the nursing home and my health failed that I lost the job. And from there, I really had to start grabbing onto my spirituality. I had to figure out what I needed to do next. And I had a couple of coaches help me really start birthing my purpose and how can I help other people where it's not going to take my health away from me. And so I started studying mastery of love. I started studying the four agreements. I started studying with other coaches who brought me through a step-by-step program that helped me understand, okay, how can I use all of my skills and how can I move forward and how does this match my personality?
Okay, interesting. And the interesting part about that, and I want to focus a little bit on, um, and I know for me, I'm a little bit confused, and our viewers might be
Mhm.
as well. You owned the company
I
that,
was co-owner,
right?
and the person that I was taking care of was the other owner.
Oh, okay. So this kind of, it was almost, I don't want to call it a Rube Goldberg machine, but it was almost like this cascade, because you owned a company, but then you were taking care of the co-owner. Did you have some, so was he the only person that your company took care of, or did you have other
Yes,
people?
no,
Okay.
just one person.
Okay. So it was, and actually, this is a great example, and it's a great example for other entrepreneurs and business owners to realize, forget about Lucy's situation for a second. When you have one client, and they are your big client and you have nothing else in the background, nothing else waiting, no other clients in the wings, no other clients in your pipeline, you have a single point of failure that could completely derail your entire company and entire life, right, Lucy?
That's correct. That's correct. And we never planned for that, so we didn't have an exit strategy.
Right. And there was no exit strategy, plus there was no, it wasn't even like, because you had to take care of Chuck full time, it wasn't even like you
Mhm.
could take care of of a second person,
Right.
at that point, right?
No, that was true. We had 7 care providers, and he required 24/7 care.
Ah, yeah. So so you had an emergency medical situation, which of course you didn't
Mhm.
plan for, and I'm just going to ask,
So
did you even have any inkling it was coming, or did you have any way you could have prepared for
I knew there was something wrong. And when I went to go have my physical, they discovered that I had fibroids. And so they put me on iron. But what happened is when because of my particular condition, the iron clodified in my legs. So then I couldn't walk. And by the time I was, going through all of these other doctors for vascular surgeons, the last vascular surgeon brought me down to the OBGYN and they had the emergency surgery right after that because I was also bleeding out
it? Yeah,
from the fibroids.
that's never a good, that when the words bleeding and out are in the same sentence right close to each other, never a good thing. I don't mean to make
Yeah.
fun of or diminish it, but it's kind of, the interesting part is our viewers might be wondering, well, how does this medical thing relate to me? And the interesting part is that Lucy's medical situation and condition closely mirrors a lot of businesses that are out there. They have
Yes.
something that they know might be going on. They have something that they
Mhm.
think might be a problem. So they go to a marketing guy, they go to a video guy, they go to a coach, they go to all these people to start to figure out. And they kind of know something's going on, but they don't, they
Mhm.
look around and nobody can really put their finger on it until sometimes it's too late. until
Exactly.
until sometimes you've got to go in for the emergency surgery. Um,
Mhm.
and the interesting part about what we're going to talk about later on, about the increasing your income by dissolving your fears. And so we'll talk about this later on, but it would seem to me that this closely aligns with what we're talking about in your turning point, where some of these fears can
Yeah.
be things that people know are wrong, but they're not attacking head on. They're not going, and this is by no means to say you didn't attack your situation head on, but there was a lot of doctors involved. There's a lot of people involved until somebody could find the right thing. So you really would have been
Mhm.
nice if you could have got that shortcut sooner, right?
Correct. Correct. If I would have had the shortcut sooner, it wouldn't have escalated to the point of where I couldn't walk, and it wouldn't have escalated to the point of where I needed an emergency surgery,
Exactly.
or 6 blood transfusions to survive going to the surgery.
Wow. And once again,
So,
that closely aligns to a business. If you can get the shortcut
mhm.
sooner, the six
Yeah.
blood transfusions are like those 6 lines of credit, or the home equity loan,
Mhm.
or the business loan, or the payday
Exactly.
loan, right? I mean, this all kind of, and the reason I'm bringing all this up, Lucy, is definitely not to diminish your medical situation. It's a horrible thing to have gone through. I'm showing people how it really ties in to what we're going to talk about in the aftermath and later on.
Mhm.
Because when you can tie that in with business, it shows why you are the people to help. You are the person to help people increase their income by
Exactly.
dissolving their fears. So
Mhm.
before we get to the aftermath, which is what happens after the surgery, and kind of how it led you to where you are now, anything else you want to tell folks about the turning point, and maybe something that you learned from the turning point?
For me, the main turning point is to really do what it takes. And, even if you're afraid to go see a doctor, or take out a line of credit, or do something, when you match fear eye to eye, the fear becomes smaller, and it'll save you so much more stress, and it'll save you so much frustration, as if you can just face it and then go through it.
Yeah, that is epic advice. So we've heard how you started off in the healthcare field as a caregiver. We've heard how you had to go through this terrible, medical situation and this emergency surgery, and now we're into the aftermath. So you're now at the point where the business is no more because of all the medical things that you've gone through. And folks, if you're just tuning in, you've got to go back and watch the beginning to find out how a caregiver turned into an owner of a company, and then I'll say lost it all through through a medical condition and situation. And now we're going to move into the aftermath. So now it's after the surgery. Tell us a little bit about how you started to recover from all of that.
I was able to recover from all that by really taking time for myself. And I was able to have some very, very good friends that were helping me. And they helped me, with the getting on and moving forward. And I started discovering that I need to take care of myself first before I can start taking care of other people. Because when my pot is empty, then I run into complications, and that's when I run into problems. And it's the same thing with the business. If you're running on empty and you're not taking the time to recharge, if you're not getting help when you need help, if you're not reaching out, if you're not doing those things, then your business is destined to fail, because you can only do so much.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of reminds me of an old saying that my dad, my adopted dad used to tell me. It's something about having a pot and then urination. I don't know. It's kind of, from the old days, something about not having I guess the old saying was not having a pot to piss in or something like that. Um,
Yes.
the interesting thing you bring up is the fact that as coaches, a lot of people want to give away a lot of free sessions and they want to do a lot for other people because they just want to give. And what they don't realize, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what they don't realize is while that might be a good business building technique, if that's their sole focus and they're just giving everything away to everybody and they're not figuring out how to make money off of it, then they're not going to be able to help anybody. I mean, is that kind of what you were going for, or what you were?
Um, what I was going for is self-care and self-love. When you can reach out, accept the help that you need, and you can take care of yourself, then you can move forward and help others. And it's kind of a balancing act because many entrepreneurs, when they're at the aftermath, when they're picking up the pieces, they don't realize how important it is to take care of yourself. They don't realize how important it is to reach out and say, "Hey, can you help me?" They try to do it all on their own, and they try to do it all with their own energy. And this is really, well, entrepreneurs are a community. And there's so many other entrepreneurs that are willing to say, hey, yeah, I'll help you. We can exchange this for that, or, we can build a community together. And it's about community teamwork and self-care.
Yeah, yeah, you're so right, and it's interesting because a lot of entrepreneurs and whether it's coaches, entrepreneurs, business owners, they're afraid to show their weakness. And there
Yes.
are times when showing weakness is good. There's other times when it's not, but there's times when showing weakness is good, and that there are other people out there that are willing to help. So that's a great point. So you're in this aftermath, and
Uh-huh.
you've you've started to take time for your after the surgery. You started to take time for yourself. when
Yes.
when in here did you realize that you weren't going to go back and do what you were doing before, that you were going to take your side projects and your passion projects and turn them into a sustainable business?
I discovered that when I started working with a midwife for your life, a life purpose coach. And I discovered that, my life purpose was still helping others. That's always been a core, and it was combining that with being a teacher because I love educating and helping others through teaching and knowledge. And it was that point that healthcare was no longer an option because it wasn't something that I could get on a broad scale because my mission is to create a tribe of wealthy women. And in order for me to create a tribe, being solely in healthcare was not going to fulfill that mission. And
Yeah, and
that's when I do.
interesting. And I love how you figured out that your life's purpose and that thread that went throughout your life was still helping other people, and figured out that you could do that through doing your side projects. So let me ask you, did that just kind of come to you? Or I know you said and by the way, I love that title for that coach, the midwife for your life. I mean, I kind of didn't get it right off the bat, and I'm like, wow, that is actually cool. So it's a great title for a coach. Did you figure that out on your own? In other words, that your common thread was helping people, or did it take a coach to bring it out of you and really to bring it out of you and solidify that?
I always knew I liked helping people, so that was obvious to me, but I couldn't figure out how. I knew the what, but I didn't know how. And so she helped me bring out the how by combining my all of my experience end all of my education in order to do what I do.
Epic. So just to repeat, you used a coach, you knew the why, but you just didn't know the how. And that's one of the things where the coach really came in handy to put all the pieces together. Now,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, one other question I want to ask you is when you got the how, okay, when you got to the end of the how, did you at that point realize that you really knew the how before it was just this puzzle with a million pieces all over the place and the coach helped you to put the puzzle together? Or did the coach add things to it that you hadn't thought of before?
She added things to it that I haven't thought of before, and she also had a step-by-step program on how to set up a business and how to do a signature talk and how to, what do you put on your business cards and how to set up your website. So she had a lot of practical step-by-steps for me so that I could take it instead of just, in healthcare, you really don't have to do a lot. You just simply start talking to sick people and you've got a job.
I love that.
and and when you have a huge vision and we have the access to the internet, then it makes your message so much bigger and it becomes global.
Yeah, I love that though. When you're in healthcare, you don't have to do anything. You just talk to sick people and you have a job. That is great.
Pretty much, yeah.
And it is very interesting because people, I've worked with a lot of, a lot of people in the medical profession, and it's so to open their eyes. It is so difficult because they go, okay, I've got insurance, I've got this, I've got that. I have my
Hmm.
built-in clientele, and it's like, yeah, but if you want to step out and do something else, unfortunately, that built-in clientele isn't readily available unless you know some of the secrets to find out where they're at. So, and we get off on a completely different topic and a completely different tangent. So, before we do, I'm going to rein myself in and say from the aftermath, and once we get through this, we're going to take a quick break. But in the aftermath, is there one big key learning that you had that you want to leave our audience with?
The one big key learning that I would like to leave with the audience is it's okay to reach out to find the resources that you need and to accept help from others that are higher up where you want to be.
Right, and that's epic. Couldn't have said it better myself. So, folks, we're going to take a real quick break, and when we come back, we're going to dig deeper with Luci into how to increase your income by dissolving your fears. Three things you need to know. So, stick around, and we'll be right back. Are you a coach, an author, or a speaker who wants your very own web TV show just like Expert Showcase, only with all your branding around it? Then what you want to do is head on over to VideoContent.Agency, go up to the Work With Us tab, send us your information, let's start a conversation, let's see if we can develop a program around you and your message. And until we see you there, make it an epic day. Welcome back. Today on Expert Showcase, we have Luci McMonagle. Hey, we got it. I got it twice. People, if you bet the over, you're in trouble at this point. So, and if you have no clue what I'm talking about, go back and watch the beginning. Watch Luci's hero's journey. Hear how a caregiver turned into a business owner, had a major medical condition and a major medical issue that cost her pretty much everything, and hear how she's come back and learned that she can and is still taking care of and giving and helping people just in a little bit of a different way. So Luci, now we're going to dig into increasing income by dissolving fears. And
Yeah.
I'm quite sure everybody watching, even the person on the black couch, yeah, I knew you were there. Put the Doritos down and the drink. It's okay. Now listen, start taking some notes. We have great viewers. Sometimes they like to have a little bit of lunch in between, when we go to break. So, dang, now I'm hungry for Doritos. But anyway, that's besides the point. So, Luci, let's dig into increasing income because everybody wants to increase their income and dissolving fears, because whether people know it or not, fears are what holds most people back. So before we dig into the 3 bullet points that we're going to talk about, the 3 keys to success, if you will, give us a brief high-level overview of what we're going to be talking about today.
Okay, what we're going to be talking about today is stretching yourself just a little bit beyond your comfort zone. We're going to be talking about moving into that area where you're able to overcome your fears by facing your fears. Then we're going to go into your words have power, your thoughts have power, and how conscious languaging and focused languaging really help you to create and manifest wealth and money in your life.
Oh, that is epic. And specifically, the 3 keys to success we're going to touch on are the fact that your words and thoughts have power, you
Yes.
rule your world, and focused language is the key. So let's dive right into that first bullet point. Your words and thoughts have power. What are we talking about here?
What I'm talking about here is the literal meaning of your words is what really manifests. So, have you ever said, oh, that's what I said, but that's not what I meant?
All the
But
time.
yeah, exactly. And when you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, how can I word this so that the literal meaning of the word is going to be what I really want, not what I said I thought I wanted? And it's kind of tricky here because a lot of people say, I want. But when you look at the word I want, it creates a lack thereof. It means you're perpetually creating a desire to want something rather than not being able to obtain it. So if you use the word I choose to have instead of I want, then on a subconscious level or on the universe level, that actually starts bringing it into manifestation.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. It's funny. In the prep for the show, we were talking about this, and I don't normally tell this story on camera, but I'm going to tell the quick story that I just told you in the show prep, which was, my mom when she was alive, was a big believer in manifestation. And the interesting part is, and you can for the people who think it's all coincidence, yes, there is some coincidence. You have to put yourself in the right place, but I'll give you, there's some things that are coincidence. But when you do something off the wall and it's what you desire and what you really need, that's when it gives you kind of the proof that there is at least something more out there and that you get what you desire, what you need, if it's right for you. And the greatest example I have is my mom had this old truck, I think it was like an 85 Datsun, that needed a tailgate. Now, there's like one of these things left in the world because they've been all run into the ground. And she's coming home from work one day. She's like, I need this tailgate for my truck. And she took a different way home from work. And as she's driving down this different way, here's a guy walking out from his garage to the front of his house with a tailgate from like a 1985 Datsun, and he's putting it on the street corner. And she's just looking and shaking her head, going, "You've got to be kidding me." So, and I think therein lies the key. And I'm going to give my opinion. I want to ask your opinion on this real quick. My opinion is you can manifest things that you not only want and need, but that are right for you. And that if you're trying to do it on something that you weren't meant to have or that isn't right for you, that you're going to fall into that category of people who it just is not working for. What do you think about that?
That's absolutely correct because we have a part of us that wants only the best and better good for ourselves. And if you're trying to manipulate a situation that's not right for you, it'll come out wonky. It just doesn't work. And if you're trying to manifest, if you choose to manifest a situation that's for the good of all, including yourself, that's when the magic starts happening. That's when things start being synchronistic. And it's like taking a different route. That's synchronicity.
Yeah, exactly. So, for those people who aren't achieving, for those people who aren't achieving what they want, and they're still, they're using their words and their thoughts powerfully. They're talking about things and they feel that it's going to it's going to bring them the results they're looking for, but they still aren't achieving it. What's something you could tell them about either how to change their words, their thoughts to make them either more powerful or to get what they deserve to have or what they were meant to have?
Well, one of the main things I tell them and I ask them is, okay, so these are the words that you're focusing on creating, but what's going on in the background? What's going on in your mind in the background? What kind of thoughts are you getting? What kind of feelings are coming up? Because your feelings are a direct result of what's going on in the deeper parts of your mind. And so I ask them to start tracking that so that they can really understand what's going on. Because if you only take 5 minutes a day to do your affirmations or just, say your positive things or for manifesting, but for the rest of the day, your mind's on autopilot and you don't even know what's going on. You just have all these racing thoughts, they're going really fast, and you're not paying attention, then you're not going to get the results that you desire. So I have my clients carry an index card, and they use like the little, they put like four signs and then a slash across to just track. It's like, is this in a positive area that you want to manifest? Is this in a negative area? Does this thought make you feel good, or does this thought make you feel bad? And after they do that for an entire week, they're like, wow, I thought I was really positive. I thought I was really doing good. And they do this exercise and they're like, they can start seeing exactly where there's a disconnect between what they're attempting to manifest and what's really going on in their mind.
Yeah, it's so amazing, because our brains are an incredible resource, and we think
Yes,
we remember everything. And while we do, we don't realize that we're not always able to automatically recall everything. So, it's one
exactly.
of the things where your brain does remember. I'm sorry, but folks, I think we're about to have an interrupter here. Would you like to be an internet superstar on the show today? Okay, come here. I think we have an interrupter. So, okay, so we have our internet superstar. This is, okay, say hi to the camera. There we go. Okay, now you're going to be an internet superstar for 5 minutes. So I will leave you in this episode. Is that okay for you? Okay, that's good. See, he manifested the desire to be an internet superstar again. So, what, you okay? Okay, good. So the interesting thing is people, remember things all day long, and their brain remembers it, but they can't actively recall it, right?
Hmm.
And then that's when it gets into, oh, I thought I was being so positive, but in the end, I didn't realize I've got, these 35 different thoughts. I had 300 thoughts that were negative and only three thoughts that were positive. I just happen to remember the positive thoughts. um,
Yeah.
you gotta love it, Lucy. You gotta love it. Now,
I do.
are you done interrupting the show today? He says, no. Okay, that's good. Okay. So the interesting part about thoughts and words, um, so with your clients, you said you have them carry this note card around, and then they end up with
Yeah.
with this aha moment that they thought they were being positive, but they were actually, either being neutral or negative. How often does that happen with people?
It's happened 100%. Every single one of my clients have said the exact same thing after the week, and it's still to this day after all of these clients, it just blows me away because I used to be like that, and I used to think, oh, I can keep track of that. I don't have to keep a note card. I kind of thought that was silly when I first discovered it, but then as I did it more and more, I'm like, whoa, whoa, this is this this is really not what I desire. This is not what I'm at to manifest. And so that's why even today, after 20 years of practicing the same technique, I still have a whole stack of index cards, and it's like when when things start getting wonky for me, I'm like, okay, what's going on? What are these things that are coming up? Because a lot of times we'll have things come up from our past, and we're not even exactly sure. We'll have an off day. We'll get up on the wrong side of the bed. And it's like if you really pay attention and if you're in the present moment, which is your point of power, be here now, that's when you're able to figure out, okay, what's going on up here? What's going on in my mind? What are my thoughts? And then you can track it to how you're feeling and where your energy's at.
Yeah, and that's great. And that sounds like it segues us right into ruling your own world, or the second key to success. So when you talk about ruling your own world, what are we really talking about here?
What I'm talking about, when you rule your world, that means you're in control of your own personal thoughts. You're able to respond rather than react to situations. And when you respond to situations rather than reacting emotionally to situations, you're better to have a better result. And when you have control of your first, there's your thoughts, then there's your feelings. And people have that upside down. They think I feel, so therefore I think. But it's I think, therefore I feel. And when we turn it back around to rule your world, you can control what you're thinking, you can control your reactions, and you can respond on not just a knowledge base, but you can respond on an intuitive base because you'll be able to know what your true feelings are when you don't have all of this stuff running around in your head, creating emotions and feelings that are not accurate.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because what do you say to people? I hear and receive what you're saying, and I agree with it. What do you say to people when they say, "Well, but I've got a million thoughts," or "How can I rule my world because I'm either so depressed, or I'm so financially strapped," or they start giving you all the excuses why they can't rule their world. How do you deal with something like that?
Okay, the first thing I do is people who have a million thoughts running around in their head and they're just like, and their head's going on and on and on and on, and they can't sleep at night because they're all stressed out, and they talk really fast, is I tell them, stop. And literally, I mean it. Like, put your hands on your ears like this, and you tell your mind to stop. If stop does not work, you tell it to be silent. And you keep doing that until you control your mind, because your mind is like a muscle, just like any other muscle. When you start exercising, your muscles get a little sore, they get a little angry, they get a little frustrated. So when you start tracking your thoughts, your mind starts thinking faster and faster because all of a sudden you're introducing a change. That change is going outside of your comfort zone, so that triggers fear. And fear will beat you up when you just step outside a little bit of that comfort zone. And so you're able to go beyond the fear to create your comfort zone bigger by telling your mind to stop, be silent. And then the other thing I do is I teach people how to be in the present moment. And that's to put your fingers like this, and then taking the tip of your tongue, put it on the little mound on the top of your mouth, and then I use the words focused, balanced, centered. Focused, balanced, centered. And I say that 3 times really, really loud in my head. And then all of a sudden there's a silence between the thoughts. And when you're in that silence between the thoughts, that's the creativity, that's the manifestation, that's the point of making your world bend to your ruling. So that's when you rule your world, is when you rule your mind.
Well, and it sounds like what you're doing is when people's thoughts are running away from them, that
Mhm.
it's kind of like a muscle twitch that you really can't control. And what you end up doing is
Correct.
you're putting yourself back in control of you're putting yourself back in control of your mind and your thoughts by instructing it to do something. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, you instruct your mind to do something, and you can also instruct like a lot of people say, oh, well, my ego, I have a big ego. But your ego is a purpose. It's to do the mundane things. And if you give your ego tasks, which is a part of your fear, because the fear is your ego bucking you, thinking, oh my gosh, you're going to make me go away. But give it tasks. Tell it what to do. You can also command your mind to, hey, be on alert. I need more money. I desire more money. I want to have more money. So you tell your mind to be on alert. Let me know when there's an opportunity that I can go forward. And you can put your mind on 3 different alerts depending on the urgency. You can put it on red alert, which means this is critical, must do now. You can put it on yellow alert, which is, yeah, it's really important, but we've got a couple of weeks, and then you can just put it on, just let me know if there's a really good opportunity. Doesn't have to happen right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, and it's kind of interesting because it's all about the reticular activating system and making sure that you're open and ready to receive. It's just like when
Correct.
you go out and buy a red car, you swear up, down, left, and right that before you bought that red car, nobody in the world owned a red car like yours.
Hmm.
But the minute you drive off the lot, all of a sudden, miraculously, everybody in the world owns the same red car as you, and you don't feel as special anymore. And it's all because you're now in tune, and because you just bought the red car, that's what you're thinking about, and that's what you're predisposed to see. So I love how you talk about the fact that you're alerting your brain to keep open for those opportunities. And I would guess that it also works because like when we get emails or when we get Facebook posts and we skim them, let's face it, there are people who are in hundreds of groups and they see thousands of posts every day, so they have to skim. And I'm quite sure that part of what you're talking about here is putting your brain in the mode so that when it scans those, it's looking for different words and you pick up on different things and see different things from those posts that will resonate with your wants, needs, and desires that you have today. I mean, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, because you're telling your mind what to look for. And when you present a question or a problem to your mind, it automatically starts looking for a solution. And if you're not using up all of the the, the energy for reprocessing negative things from the past, by having all of those thoughts going on, and either we're in the past somewhere thinking about I should have, could have, would have, you have your regrets. If you remove that, you have more energy to look for how to make money. How can I do this? How can I achieve this? Um, then you start going into the I can, I will, I have, I be, by using those and putting your mind on tasks. Your mind loves to have a task. And if it's a task that you want to manifest, even the better.
Yeah, your mind loves to be busy, whether you want to, whether you want to admit it or not. Even if you don't have ADD, ADHD, or any of the autism spectrum disorders, your mind loves to be busy. It's just the fact that
Yeah.
most of the time we're not in tune to how busy our mind really is. Because if we were, we'd go crazy. We would go
Yeah.
completely nuts. And by the way, that is a technical term. I know enough psychologists that will back me on the fact that that is a completely technical term. But no, I mean it'll take you, and you will, you will drive yourself insane if you knew everything your mind was processing during a given day. So there's one other question, and I have a feeling it's a much longer conversation.
Okay.
But we brought up about fear, and I'm quite sure there are a lot of people that are watching right now, especially the guy on the blue couch. Yeah, the blue couch. Trust me, I know when you're on a blue couch, It's just, this is the way you're thinking. I have enough friends who own blue couches. I've done a study, I've done the research, but they're thinking, okay, I'm afraid of something, and every time I tell my brain to do something else or I try and quiet my mind, the fear creeps back in. And I'm sure that's something that you help people with, but is there any one real quick thing you could give people today to start overcoming that fear, when they've tried to quiet their mind, and it's a challenge for them because that fear keeps trying to beat the wall down that they're putting up, and keeps trying to interfere.
The one most important thing that you can do is to start having a conversation with fear. Fear is actually your friend. Fear was created to keep you safe. Fear wants to make you safe because, like, when you were a child or when you were younger, let's say your teacher said, "Oh, that's bad. That's, really bad," and they were protecting you from maybe putting that crayon in the light socket or something that would have hurt you. So you have a panic response from an adult who didn't want you to hurt yourself, and then all of a sudden you pull back. And so fear was created to prevent you from being hurt. So it's your friend, and it's not your enemy. And when you start having a conversation with it, it's like, okay, I really, really understand that you're trying to keep me safe. I really understand that you don't want me to get hurt again. It's going to be okay, but we're going to do this anyway.
Epic. That is epic advice. I could not have said it any better myself. So let's move into focused language. You've talked so far about, ruling your world. We've talked so far, about your words and thoughts having power. Now, to kind of bring this all into focus, I would think if your words and thoughts have power and you rule the world, I would think that this last key here you've got about, having focused language is extremely important. So let's dive right into it. Why is focused language the key?
Focus language is the main key because we have to understand the literal meaning of our words. And when you focus the literal meaning of your words, you create and manifest easier and quicker because languaging will make you wealthy. And when we were growing up, we all learned English in America, not necessarily in all countries. And it's because we have one language that is empowered. And when you look at having one language, when you look at languaging is making you powerful, and using the right word will make everything easier for you. And by what I'm saying is your words have power, and understanding the correct words, but we also have to communicate better with other people. And using focused language, like you're understanding exactly what I'm saying right now because I'm speaking words that you understand. And so I'm speaking your language, so to speak. And speaking the language of the universe is understanding the literal meaning. And what I was saying earlier is if you use the word I want, looking up the literal meaning of what I want means a desire that's not fulfilled. But if you use a different word in exchange, such as I have or I choose to have, that completely changes the content on how that's going to manifest, how that will come to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, it's interesting because I take people through something very similar when talking about things that they've done in the past. In other words, most people say, "Well, I should have done this, or I could have done that," and I stop them and say, "No, I mean, should have and could have are very closed things, and it's
Yes.
regretful. It's regretful language. You come and say,
Mm-hmm.
next time I will." And it's an amazing thing that happens when people realize that not only do words have power to the universe, but they have power inside of you, and they have power to make your own words have power to make you feel certain ways. And when watching
Exactly.
clients go through, a simple exercise like when they say, well, I should have or I could have done this, and it's like, okay, watch how much different you feel when you say next time I will. Next time I will is an empowered statement. It's something that you're setting your brain up for success. It's something that you're setting your brain up to realize that the next time an opportunity comes along, you're going to do something different. You're going to do something that pushes you forward. I mean, I think that's a good example of focus language. Is that a
Yeah.
good example of focus language?
That's perfect. By exchanging I should have to I will next time, or I can, or I choose, using higher energy words is going to create a better feeling. And when you feel better, you have more power. When you have more power, you have more energy to rule your world.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because we had talked about, you had mentioned a comment in this segment about words can make you wealthy, and I think words can also make you poor, can't they?
Oh, yes. Yes, my languaging when I was younger, I grew up in Upper Michigan. I spoke like a Yooper.
I'm
Okay, so
only
I am
laughing.
a
I want to
Yooper.
interrupt for a second. I'm only laughing because I lived right outside Detroit for I think it was about 8 years. So when you said
Okay.
Uper, I haven't heard that since I moved out of Detroit, but it kind of makes me feel like Detroit. I feel like is my second home. I know it's bizarre with
Yeah.
everything that's gone on there, but I'm a whacked out type of guy sometimes. So it made me smile when I heard Uper. So anyway, I'm continue.
Correct. So when I grew up, we do not have proper diction. We're way up in Upper Michigan. We sound like French Canadians or Minnesotians, as they call us, and English is not really highly valued. Math is highly valued. So they don't really focus a lot on the proper usage of language. And it's not only that, but you know how they say you have to speak professional in order to have a professional position. Well, can you imagine not being able to speak professional, not having proper diction, and then trying to get higher up in the world? People are not going to take you seriously. It also is understanding that your words will affect you personally and how you feel. Like your example said, instead of using I should, which makes you feel bad about yourself because it's not something you are doing, you change that with I could, or I choose, or I will. And then you start feeling good about yourself, but you also are speaking other people's language when you find out what their language is. And like we language people by their personality, and we all have a specific personality. Like somebody who is very mathematical, they speak direct. They're very focused on results oriented. They want to know facts and figures. And then if you speak with somebody who's really animated, very out there, speak it a little faster is better for them. And if you speak with somebody who is definitely a go-getter and somebody who's going to make things happen, they want to know what's the results, what's the benefits.
Yeah. And by the
So
way,
languaging,
people resonate with the people that they talk and they experience, and they have experiences alike, and they talk similar. It's one of the reasons why people with different dialects and people from different areas of the country can become highly successful, because people in those localized areas or people in the areas are, they resonate with them, and they can identify with them. And isn't that really the key here, Lucy, in the end, is your words and your focus language need to resonate with your ideal client, and that's what's going to make you successful.
exactly. If you can speak to your ideal client with their problems and their issues better than they can tell you themselves, they're saying, yes, that's me, that's me, that's me. And there's a cohesion. And when you have that cohesion, when you understand another person, they feel accepted. And that means they're in, not out.
Yeah. And I guess it applies to your own self-talk as, your own self-talk as well. You can, when you talk to yourself in a way that you can resonate with, it's going to help you overcome fear. It's going to help you get past everything, and it's going to help you be more successful. Um, because it's going to then break down the barrier that your brain puts up, says, "Hey, I don't understand what's going on." I mean, is that fair to say?
Yes, yes, it's fair to say because if you're talking poorly about yourself, if you say, "Oh, I hate my body and I don't like this and I don't like that," your body's going to react. Your mind is going to react. And it's hard to show up in the world when you're focusing on everything that makes you feel bad.
Yeah.
And if you even when you have depression, I understand I've had bouts of very serious depression and chronic fatigue at times throughout my life. And I understand that when I was focusing on things that I wasn't grateful for, when I was focusing on things that made me sad, they would make me sadder.
Yeah.
And so even if you're having a bad day or even if you're having down days and you feel depressed and you're not sure how you're going to get out of this, just find one little silver of something that you can hang on to. Like maybe you're just happy because the sun came up today.
Yeah.
And just start there, even if it's just a little baby step. One little baby step will lead to another, to another, to another, and that will eventually lead you to the point of where you can take the leaps, when you can feel, I've got it,
Yeah.
and you can feel great. And when you feel great, you can help other people feel great. And that's when the synergy starts working. That's when we get in sync with our soul purpose.
That's epic. So I can't think of a better place to roll out of this episode on, other than to ask you, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to leave our audience with today?
I would really like to leave the audience with being able to understand that no matter where you're at, no matter what your past has been, you can still be great. You can still accomplish your desires, and you can really, really know that I truly believe in you, and I am here for you. I will stand for you.
Epic. And folks, I think you should all take Luci up on that offer. So what I've done is thrown up a website. It's bit.ly/talk to Luci. It's on the screen right now. We've spent the last hour talking with an epic guest, Luci McMonagle. Yay! For those of you counting, the over-under is 0. For those of you who bet the under, you win. Go back to the beginning of the episode and figure out what the heck I'm talking about. On today's episode, Luci, once again, has been an epic guest. We found out in the heroine's journey piece of our show how Luci went from a caregiver in the medical profession to having a medical condition and an emergency surgery that cost her business, and flowed into continuing to help people through what she does now as a coach and somebody who helps you break through your fears. We then looked at in the experts focus segment about how your words and thoughts have power, how you rule your world, and how focused language is the key. If you're just tuning in right now, where have you been this last hour? You should have been joining us, but that's okay. We got everything out there. You can go back and watch the beginning of the episode, which I highly recommend you do. And while you're pulling up the episode, head over to bit.ly/talk to Luci, set up and sign up for a complimentary abundance breakthrough session. That sounds awesome and that sounds epic. If I were you, everybody watching this right now, go sign up for that right now. bit.ly/talk to Luci. Sign up for your complimentary abundance breakthrough session. Watch the rest of her epic episode. Get in touch with Luci. Make sure you do it today. And until next time, and until we see you again on the next episode of Expert Showcase, make it an epic day.